Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our parents and families, our supporters of our students. My name is Jennifer Scott, and I am our Director of Alumni and Family Relations. If you haven't met me yet, I'll be surprised because I feel like this last year we've done a lot of interactions, just trying to keep you up to speed on what's going on with your students, what's going on campus, how we're dealing with COVID response, and tonight is no different. So we are excited to have three really special campus partners to give you a little bit of a update on what's going on in their part of the world and what campus is going to look like for the rest of the semester into the summer. So today I have Christy Moline, who's our Director of COVID Operations. I have Dr. Julie Finnern, who's our Associate Provost of Academic Affairs. And I have Miranda Powers, who is our Associate VP of Student Life, Student Experiences. So I'm just gonna let them take it away. Thanks so much for joining us, and I'll hop back at the end to explain what you can do if you have further questions. Thanks.
Well, hello, Bethel parents. Thank you for joining us this evening for this COVID update. We have had a lot of experience now. We've been at this for almost 7 months. So I would like to say that we have baked COVID into the hum of our daily operations, and it is showing on campus. So the updates that I'm going to give today are generally about the status of the campus, the virus on campus, current planning priorities and challenges, and also an update on the status of the vaccine. So as we have been since early January, our positivity rate on campus is under 1%, which is really, really low. And we've maintained that since the start of the semester as well. We have adjusted our alert level on campus twice since early January and have taken measured steps to allow a little bit more liberties around campus with access to housing and so forth as we've seen the virus activity decline. Additionally, we've seen a good decline in viral activity in the broader community, and we're sitting at a place now that looked very similar to the end of summer as far as the volume in the state of Minnesota. So all in all, things are really looking like they're going in the right direction for us, but it doesn't mean we can let our guard down quite yet. We do have a lot of navigating to do to get us through the rest of the semester, and the rest of the spring semester is going to most likely be the most difficult time period for us because we have 2 breaks that we're going to be navigating. So we have spring break coming up, as you're all aware, and then we come back for a week and then a short week, and then it's Easter break, and so those 2 breaks pose a challenge for us. And we have gotten questions about why we didn't combine them, and we have always said that we were going to let the data drive our decisions. And the data, when you allow the data to drive your decisions, it means you have a shorter lead time in making those changes. So we have maintained the calendar as it was posted before, and we'll have a spring break and an Easter break. With that, we are going to be encouraging community members to get tested before spring break so that they know that if they're going home or doing any traveling, that they would not be bringing the virus with them. We are also going to be requiring testing of residential students upon return to campus, and we will communicate all of the details for your students so that they know how to access that testing. But if you also could encourage them to get tested, that would be helpful as well. And then the same for Easter break. We come back from spring break, and then we'll have testing options available before and after Easter break. So you can have some confidence that when your students come home to you for Easter, that they are not bringing the virus. We'll also implement a lay low guidance, which means we are going to ask students to limit their activity before they leave campus, and also limit activity when they return to campus until their test results are known. And this is just the general guidance that is put out for higher education institutions to follow, and that's what we'll share with our students. I do want to just share a word of caution about spring break travel, because it is very possible if you are planning on traveling with your student out of the country, it is a tremendous risk right now, because you will be required to have a negative test result in order to return to the United States. And we have had cases where students test positive the day that they are supposed to return, and it just creates a lot of challenges for them to catch up with their academic work. So I would strongly caution against international travel at this point, and also strongly caution that any other travel is really done in a socially distanced manner and with limited group exposure. I want to transition a little bit to provide a vaccine update for you. If you're paying attention to what's happening in Minnesota, we have about 500,000 Minnesotans that are fully vaccinated, another 500,000 that have at least one dose of the vaccine. So it is rolling out in Minnesota. The question we get asked a lot is it required? And you may or may not be aware that the COVID vaccine is not approved by the FDA and is under emergency use authorization, and as a result cannot be required under any circumstance. We are actively planning for how to communicate with our community, at which point they become eligible for the vaccine, and would also encourage you to check your own status of when you could be eligible for the vaccine by going to the Minnesota Department of Health's Vaccine Connector. And you could encourage those conversations with your students as well about whether or not you would wish for them to be vaccinated, or they would want to get vaccinated. We do also know that higher ed specifically is unlikely to be called out as a priority group, and therefore faculty, staff, and students would fall into the prioritization as they would in their normal day-to-day life. So if you have health conditions that would qualify you, you would get vaccinated at that time. We don't expect a specific call out for higher education. So encourage you to check the status on the Minnesota Department of Health website as well. That's the update that I have for you. I'm going to pass it along to Julie, and she is going to provide more specifics on academics.
Thanks, Christy. And hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time for this update. It's truly good to be together. We are almost at spring break, as Christy was talking about, and we are grateful to have so many of us here on campus living and learning together. And though there's certainly some challenges to learning with COVID precautions in place, it has been really impressive to see students' engagement, and their engagement is paying off with really deep learning. Just a few examples I'd like to share with you of that is, as I walk through the halls, or if you've been here lately, you can see that there are current student art exhibits up. There's one called Memories Made New, and another, How Did We Get Here? And this is one of the ways students are learning, not only through this COVID time, but also because of it. And that is deepening their learning. And maybe some of you were able to see the humanities production or the music and theaters production of the 1940s radio hour during interim. Very creative and very well done. And there's actually 2 new productions in the process for spring, and one of those are going to be presented outside. So I am actually really excited for that. And I hope that conditions are such so that many of you who are listening can also come in and join in that. Every day as I walk by the science labs, I see students as they are discovering and they're discussing. I'm so grateful for the windows that are in those new areas so that I get that peek into learning. Your students, your sons and daughters are here learning and engaging deeply every day. I mentioned spring break, and Christy gave some details of what that means for testing and travel and all those considerations. I would really ask you to encourage wise decision making so that our students can return ready to continue their learning. One of the things that we find makes the biggest difference in a student's success in a single class, and also as they progress through their program, is their attendance and their participation in class. So making sure that nothing jeopardizes that right now. So then let's look ahead just a little bit. When we think about this summer, it's typical that most summer classes here at Bethel are offered in an online virtual format, and that is so that students can geographically be wherever works for them in the summer and still continue their learning. And that will be the same for this summer. Then fall of 2021, which may seem a ways off, but it really isn't when we think that students will be registering in just around a month or a little bit less. So for fall, right now, we are preparing in case the COVID precautions are still in place so that we can follow them and be ready. When will we know if we have to do that or not? Yeah, we have to stay flexible. We don't know, but we will follow guidelines and we will adjust accordingly, and we will be ready to do so. And we will also be ready to celebrate and gladly adjust when the COVID precautions are loosened. But in the meantime, students should really pay close attention to how a class is offered when they register for the class, because they will be expected to participate in class sessions as scheduled. And keep in mind that, as is always true, if a student needs an accommodation, they can and they should connect with the Office of Accessibility Resources and Services so that we can serve their needs. Just a note that in the fall, if the COVID precautions are loosened, then we may be able to take some of the classes, which will be a small number, but some of the classes that are scheduled for synchronous online. So meaning that they're scheduled to be virtual, but they do have an actual meeting time for the class. And if we can, we will move even more of those to in person during that same time that they were scheduled when students registered. Classes listed as asynchronous, meaning that they are fully online with no scheduled class. Even if the COVID precautions change and are loosened up, those will remain asynchronous so that we don't make a change that will result in scheduling conflicts for our students. So while we're focusing on making the most of the spring right now, that's also a little bit of a look into the fall. I'm going to go ahead and hand off to Miranda.
Thanks, Julie. Well, hello, parents. It's great to be with you again this evening. I was just thinking, as I'm hearing the others give their updates, my goodness, when we started this summer, I don't think any of us could have predicted maybe how this would have gone. And maybe some of you families out there were thinking, I give you until fall break or until Christmas break. And I know that we're not quite to the finish line, but I just want to celebrate that here we are almost 3/4 of the way through our academic year. And Bethel has been able to prioritize the face-to-face experience. And I think students have really benefited from that on our campus, even though maybe it's looked a little different than they anticipated. I also come to you saying, I think there were some things that we said this summer that we've been able to make good on this year. We've had on average 2 campus activities a week, and those have continued from student activities to testify events to a great Black History Month celebration that was both virtual and face-to-face last week on our campus, to an event that we're doing virtually with the CCCU celebrating Women's History Month. So there's a number of things happening on our campus for students to attend and also to engage in learning with one another. And we are just grateful that's happening in the residence halls and in a number of spaces. So yes, we're not quite there yet, but I'm feeling very grateful for our ability to be face-to-face and to remain face-to-face. And your students are to be commended, because that is taking all of us, and we feel really fortunate. I would say spring semester feels a little bit different. Students have settled into a different routine with COVID. They sort of know what to expect. More classes are face-to-face, like Julie said, and there's just a different energy on campus. So we're also celebrating that every single day here on our campus. Besides campus activities, one thing that you should know is that we're going to get out the outdoor furniture early. So for those of you who live in Minnesota, it's nice this week, and even if we get the traditional April Minnesota snow, that's okay. We're going to dust the patio furniture off at that point and try to get our students some outdoor time here to celebrate spring on our beautiful campus. Many of you have heard, maybe with joy or maybe with consternation, it is time for housing signups. So if your student is looking for a roommate, please have them check in with their resident director or an RA. We do have an open groups process and we would be happy to assist them with that. I also wanted to just highlight that summer housing is available for students on campus this summer too. And so if your student is looking for a place, that's a great option for your family. And lastly, I know many of you are wondering about our plans for commencement. And so I wanted to just provide you with a brief update. Some of the things that we're prioritizing are students' ability to walk across the stage, to celebrate with their faculty, and to have opportunities to take photos, both here on campus and also with their families. So as we're planning for commencement actively, those are things that we're prioritizing. You can expect that you will receive an announcement from President Allen about our commencement plans the week of March 22nd. So please check your email for that announcement that week. Parents, just a couple ways that you can partner with us. Spring break and other things have already been spoken about, but we're seeing some mask fatigue on campus. Let's be honest, the whole world is having COVID fatigue. I was talking to my staff this week about how it was basically just a year ago that NBA game, that player tested positive, and it felt like the whole world was shutting down at that point. We're almost to that point where it's been a year, and that is a really, really long time. So as you can, please encourage your students. We've come a long way, but we're not quite there yet. Wearing their masks, socially distancing, making choices to drive separately instead of in cars together. All of those are things that they can do to help mitigate the spread of COVID on our campus. Additionally, we know everyone falls in a different place, but we have been really grateful for our access to testing. So we do have required testing, as Christy said, after spring break, as well as after Easter break for those students who are in residential settings. Additionally, if you or your family travels for any of those things, and even if your student lives off campus, we'd encourage you to get tested and observe that lay low period. And just remind your students to remain flexible. So again, we're trying to be really data driven, which means that sometimes our decisions come a little later than we'd all hope, but we're following the data and science and we will be prepared for fall. But we don't exactly know what that will hold. So we're preparing, but we're unsure exactly of our specific plans. So stay flexible. I'm going to pass this back to Jennifer and for her to wrap up our time.
Thanks, Miranda. I was just thinking this morning, we were actually interviewing someone in our department, and one of the conversations we had was about the fact that every single person that works at Bethel is here for students. And we really do love your students. We love them a lot. And I want to just say on behalf of parents and family members, because they're the ones that I hear from, thank you to our campus partners here. The work that you have done has truly been nothing short of heroic. I don't know if you parents and family members know, but about 85% of our classes this spring are face-to-face. And that just blows most other schools out of the water in terms of our ability to use the spaces that we have and have our students complying and having our faculty be flexible and having our facilities management team just really kind of getting after it. So the things that our staff and faculty have done to give our students in all of our schools really an amazing year. I mean, again, like Miranda said, and I think Julie said this too, we're not to the end quite yet, but I can look back and say, truly, thank you for all that you've done for our students and parents and family members. I want to tell you, to tell your sons and daughters and your students, thank you for the way that they have participated well in this community. Their willingness to be saying yes to the community has allowed everyone to stay on campus learning as much as possible. So I want to say thank you, to extend our thank you to your students. Parents and families, as always, if you have lingering questions that come up after this meeting or something comes up between now and the end of March when we'll get that update on commencement from President Allen, I encourage you to reach out to our team at parents@bethel.edu, or you can call the main Bethel phone line and they'll hook you up with our department. So thanks again for being here. I pray a blessing on you as you go, especially for those who are traveling, that you might stay healthy and have a great time with your students, even if it's just them coming home. I hope that you welcome them home, they get rest, and they're ready to finish their semester well. So thanks so much.